I think throughout history, Macedonians were just tired because they were like, because you had the Ottomans coming, then the Serbs came, then the Bulgarians. They were like, whatever, guys. You just tell us, we'll sign the paper and just leave us alone, please. We'll be whatever you want us to be.
Hello, welcome to Comedy with an Accent podcast. I'm your Taiwanese comedian, Kuan Wen. I interview comedians who perform English stand-up comedy but who are not native English speakers, or they can have very distinct British regional accent. This podcast is all about comedy, about accent, about languages, and about the comedy technique. So stay tuned if you're interested.
I learned a new word in Scotland.
Yeah, what did you learn?
You're a gadgie.
What does that mean?
It means you're a cool guy.
Guys ready?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Can I have that?
Roll.
2, 1.
Hello, welcome to the Comedy with an Accent. Welcome to the Comedy with an Accent podcast. Before we go any further, would you mind clearing the chewing gum on the desk, though? I am recording, and it's gonna look disgusting.
It's just a chewing gum. I don't know why you're so. Where's
There's
the
a
camera?
reason.
Right there.
It is.
Look at to all the viewers.
That's not waste our recording.
That's me.
There's a reason it's banned
It's
in
my
Singapore.
saliva.
Okay, I may not be Singaporean, but please, oh my God. Welcome back to the Comedy with an Accent podcast. I have a long. Please don't give it to me.
Wait, all right.
I'm gonna put it in my pocket.
No, don't put it in your pocket because then it might.
Okay, give it. I'm gonna put it in the bag there.
It's fine.
There's a bin. I'm gonna put it in the bin.
It's all right.
All right.
It's all good.
You're gonna forget about it. Ain't gonna wash your trousers. Ain't gonna blame me. So,
We've been married for
welcome
20
to
years.
the Comedy with an Accent podcast. This is the fourth time I've said it. I reunited with a good friend of mine, once my show partner, once my, how do you call people who are on the same roster of the same agent?
Colleague, I guess.
Colleague,
Associate.
a fellow agent, Chinese. Today, our guest is from the mysterious country of North Macedonia.
Very
Vlad Ilich, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Kwan. Like you said, we are.
Kuan Wen.
Yeah, all right. You want me to say the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Okay, Kwan Wen.
Yes.
Okay, even after years of friendship.
Even after years of friends, because it's not, we don't shorten our names. Vlad just came back from his solo debut on our show at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe.
Woo!
His sense of humor is expressed by the show title, Vladislav. Baby, don't hurt me. Although I was listening to other podcasts you've done before, I thought your name's called Vlado, actually.
Vlado is what they call me back home.
Right,
it's like
your
a nickname.
nickname.
Yeah.
So Vladislav really is your name.
Well, Vladislav is my whole first name.
Yes.
When I came to the UK, everyone was like, Vlad, like Vladimir Putin. But Vlado is what they call me back home. It's a bit softer.
We're going to have to park my usual first question.
Already on the questions.
No, normally I would start with a standard question. Do you think you have an accent when you speak English? But we can't do that today because you're coming from a country just to explain the name of the country that takes forever. I call him a Macedonian comic, but Macedonia is a very contentious word. So
Not for me.
not for you.
Not for me.
You're going to say that because you can
Maybe
still
so.
have a career back home.
No.
So-
I think you're perfectly fine to say I'm Macedonian.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, we'll explain. So the legal name of Vlad's home country is called North Macedonia. Just
legal.
on the name of your country alone, you have tons of jokes. Until 2019, the country was known as the ridiculous former Yugoslav Republic of
No,
Macedonia.
it was known as Macedonia. It was just in Eurovision that they came up with this stupid name, the former Yugoslav, blah, blah.
Okay, 'cause
It's-
if you go on Wikipedia and if you type in the word Macedonia, it comes out as 4 options. Option number 1, North Macedonia, known until 2019 as the Republic of Macedonia, is a landlocked country in the Balkans and Southeast Europe with 1.8 million population, which is your country, right?
1.8 million. Wow.
Have you guys been making more babies? Were you expecting a lower number?
I think so.
The
You hit
Macedonians
me.
are that's all.
He's hitting me with the facts
Yes.
straight away.
Option number 2. Macedonia, in brackets, ancient kingdom, is a kingdom in Greek antiquity. That's where Alexander the Great came from. And
he was a gaji.
And North Macedonia, Vlad's country, represent a northern third of the ancient kingdom of Macedonia. That's the fact from Wikipedia. Okay, we'll not dispute it. Yeah. Third option, Macedonia, in brackets, Greece, is a former administrative, I can't pronounce this word, it's former region of Greece is now spanning 3 subdivisions of northern Greece.
I didn't know I came to a parliamentary session.
You are.
I'm in the assembly
Option
right now.
number 4, Macedonia, in brackets, is a historical region that includes parts of 6 Balkan countries today. So the reason North Macedonia couldn't just call themselves and be accepted as Macedonia is because Greece said, no, Macedonia was where Alexander the Great came from, and they also have a region called Macedonia. And they called you, I'm going to quote, it's not my word, they called you some Bulgarians pretending to be Greeks. So for years...
Have you ever been a guest at a comedy podcast where someone just insults?
No, it's not my words. I'm just quoting the online comments on YouTube.
Why would be that in the opening statement? It's like me going, hey, you're from Taiwan. China wants you there.
Yeah, it's like people say, yeah, you're from the renegade province of China. So there's been a lot of jokes and news coverage and explanation, BBC statement on how do you call this country Macedonia and why it is called Macedonia.
Let me tell you, they're just jealous because we have better Eurovision songs. Okay, we can reach like the high notes much quicker. So that's the only. Let's move on from this politics and history bit. I thought this is a comedy podcast.
No, it's a podcast about knowledges as well.
Okay. Well, you had your knowledge printed from Wikipedia. So
I have
good
my
for you.
market memorized. No. So that's why, to make sure Greece doesn't object to the eventual entry of North Macedonia into the European Union, you had a compromise. That's why your
that's
country
true.
became North Macedonia, even though there's no South Macedonia.
That's right. That's one of the jokes.
Yeah, so for the purpose of the podcast today, I'll refer to Vlad as Macedonian, but I'll refer to the country as North Macedonia. I don't take any political view on this, because this is not part of my world. I'm sure...
He's just scared.
I don't really care. I mean, like, it's not like I desperately needed the Macedonian market. You know, like 1.8 million, and that's a fifth of London. I'm like, all right.
I'm just teasing you.
Cool. All right, Vlad.
Okay, we've answered my nationality. What's next?
Can I ask you though, why do you look so put off by the explanation of...
I guess I'm just tired of explaining to people in London.
But I
think.
wasn't asking you. This is exactly why I was doing all that, because every single...
No, I know.
Every single podcast I listened to that you were on and is still available out there, unlike your podcast that's been shelved away.
See, it's these tiny little ring.
Yeah, the little poking and bitchy
stinging
comment.
me all the time.
Yeah, every single host asks you the same thing, and I don't want you to repeat it, so I'm gonna read it out. But you don't even want me to.
No, I very much appreciate it. Yeah, let's move on.
Or is it part of you just like, why do we even have to explain? Why don't other countries have to? It is kind of unfair. Is that where that little bit of...
I think
Disenchantment
this is
comes
not
from?
intended for the listeners or for the viewers. I think generally in a lot of rich Western countries, there is actually so much abundance of resources that people actually are becoming stupid. They're becoming ignorant because everything is just right there. And because when it is, you just don't do it. That's not to say we wouldn't do it either. If we had the resources, we would probably do the same. So it's a matter of human nature being in the comfort zone. That's why I think it's like, yeah, why would I have to explain it? But at the same time, I don't mind explaining
It was a very broad statement. You
Well,
simply
ask me
say
something
that...
more specific.
No. You were saying like, why do I have to tell you this? It is something you could know easily and you should know. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but also I understand if they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a happy mood. I don't like to get down in the geopolitics.
Oh, no.
Get all dirty.
You can't base so much of your material on funny take of geopolitics and say you don't want to talk about geopolitics. So this is kind of hypocrisy over there.
I think maybe that's why. All my comedy is just jokes about borders.
That's not what I said, and it's not true. Your comedy has evolved and includes so many other wonderful stuff. But I wanted to be...
Ukraine and Russia.
I want to be the devil's advocate. Do you know much about Japanese colonization of South Korea, for example?
I know a little bit about Japanese colonization in general, but nothing specifically about South Korea.
So what if that's how West seen them?
Sorry.
I went to see Vlad in Edinburgh and I say to him, I loved your show, but you have a habit of keep pulling off your sleeve without doing anything with it. So it's just like when you're performing, your hands have to touch something. You constantly have to move.
Yeah, because I'm a smoker. When I'm not smoking, I have to do something with my hands.
Is it?
Yeah. I stopped smoking on Wednesday. So now I'm just more manic with my hands.
I'm gonna say put stop in quotation mark. Okay, I'm gonna get more bitchy comments from me. I did say, for example, like I used to grumble about people not knowing what happened in Taiwan, which actually improved a lot the last 2-3 years because there's a lot more coverage in the news right now. And I used to feel disappointed until I bumped into someone. For example, I bumped into someone who's from Georgia or Azerbaijan and Armenia, and I don't know a lot about their regional conflict. So what you're saying that it's kind of annoying when Western people don't know what's going on in your region, but there are other regions in the world you don't know that much, and you could.
Well, I said no, first of all. I said, I didn't know this was a political debate. But I said, it doesn't matter. I understand why they don't know. That it's human nature. But second of all, if it's kind of geographically close to you, you should know. That being said, when Ukraine came into the spotlight, I barely knew anything about Ukraine. I'm so much closer in language, culture, and geographically to you.
Let's reset. I'm going to go back to my usual question. Yeah. So I've known Vlad for quite a few years, and Vlad always asks me, why are you not inviting me to be on your podcast? Am I not good enough? Of course he is. But I've always wanted to wait until I see a full-hour show to see whether Vlad is doing different kind of comedy material. And now that's why.
I thought you were going to say if he's good enough.
No, I'm not judgmental. I am a judgmental bitch. But that's the real reason. Before we dive into that, Vlad, do you think when you speak English that you have an accent?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that answers the question.
On the podcast you did with a karate practitioner, real estate agent on a success podcast. Do you remember the podcast that you did?
Oh, I did. That was a long time ago.
I am quoting what you said on the other podcast. You said when you first started performing, you find it a little bit annoying that you get on stage, you cannot just start telling jokes. You have to explain. You listed 3 things, which is basically what I talk about all the time on this podcast. The audience sees you or they hear you, they think who you are, where you come from, what language do you speak. And you must cover this aspect before they clear their doubt or uncertainty about you, before they fully accept you as a performer so that you can do whatever jokes you like. But your initial statement or joke must always cover the 3 aspects, which I completely agree. Then you said you'll learn to use this to your advantage because they don't know much about the actual facts of your country or background. So you can be playful with it, or you can turn a description into a joke. So that's how you start your comedy set, which is my impression of your early stuff, your early jokes. So when you say, yes, you do think you have an accent in the context what I just explained, could you elaborate a little bit? How did you make peace with this? How did you make use of these?
Absolutely. I think it's a great starting point. I've said this recently during the Fringe. I wrote an article for Chortle. If you have a cultural baggage, so you've come from another country and now you're trying to perform in the UK, it's a great starting point to make some simple steps towards building a relation with the audience. They don't know who you are, but also you don't know who they are. So you're trying to figure out what British people like to laugh at, and they're trying to figure out how your humor is connected to their intrinsic, inherent way of behaving.
Yeah.
So without getting too complicated into that, answering those identity marks, I call them, if you hit those guideposts at the beginning, they could really help you in the first maybe 5-10 minutes of your comedy. And then later on, as you develop, you can start really expanding.
Yeah, that's what I like to describe them simply as admin. It's something we have to do either way. So let's say, for example, if you have a building and you have to build a footbridge or a storage room, if it's something functional, you need to have it there and look kind of ugly. The way you can do is to have a bit of design, make it look nicer. For us as a second language performer, we always have to answer those questions. I know you're thinking about my accent. I know you're wondering where I come from. So I'm going to answer these, but these are going to take up time. And every single minute in my performance should actually count as entertainment. So I'm trying to do that. I'm answering at the same time. I'm also turning them into jokes. So you have the same frequency of jokes in my comedy set while you also understand where I come from.
But you have to be careful not to fall into a box, I guess.
Yeah. Why not? What if the box is really useful and efficient?
Well, it can be. I don't think it can in the long term. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can maybe write an hour about who you are and where you're from.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2 hours, one about the whole history where you're from. But I don't think you can... I don't know.
You really are
Just-
tired today. Let's put it this way. This is how you like to open your set. Hello, my name is Vlad. I'm immigrant. Okay, so that's...
No, hello, my name is Immigrant.
Oh, my name is immigrant.
Oh, I've done a version where my last name is Immigrant.
Right, okay. So let's say before you even mention Macedonia, if you say my name's immigrant,
Yeah.
or if you use the other version, hi, my name is Vlad, my last name is immigrant, do you think before you even declare where you're from, the accent kind of give them a broad direction? They can work out you're from the eastern part of the continent?
Yeah, I think so. I think some people are really not bothered with that. Mm-hmm. I've started to realize that. And some people, that's the only thing they can focus on.
Yeah.
Until you answer it. So now I'm playing a game where I'm trying to see how long can I go for without actually telling them.
You like to mention that you are immigrant, and you will sometimes ask whether there are other immigrants in the audience. Has there ever been gigs when you asked and there was just blank silence? Like
Yes.
there's no immigrant. And
There was a couple and it was really weird. It was so
and what
weird.
difference does it make when you realize there's no immigrant? Do you plow on, or do you say, I'm going to do some things that I plan differently?
Well, in my head, I just pretend they're all from Romania or somewhere.
Oh.
To make it easy for me.
Does it work?
Well, at one of those gigs, it was funny when I said it was the immigrants and then nobody, because they accepted me. But at the other gig, they were like, oh, why is he asking? Is it because he only performs to... They kind of took it the wrong way, which is really weird. Why would you take it the wrong way? So that was a weird gig.
Okay.
And I got heckled.
What did they say?
Lady said, my ass.
My ass.
Yeah. And I was like, is that a heckle or an invitation?
You say that you can make fun of it because they don't know much.
Yeah.
You also mentioned you can play around with it. So you will take advantage of the crowd's relative ignorance of your country and your background. You also said you can educate them. You can bring a bit knowledge to them. So basically your jokes, there's a mixture of made up lies, which are supposed to be obviously jokes, but some of the jokes are based on facts. And the ideal scenario is that they'll be able to work out which are obvious jokes, which are not. But I wonder, is that distinction always clear? So I would say, for example, one of your jokes, just to say, because I've known Vlad for so long, I probably can recite a good chunk of his jokes verbatim. You say that in North
Hello, my
Macedonia,
name is Vlad.
when a baby is born, you say, look at this one. Let's send it to Germany. Low quality, let's send it to Great Britain. Yeah, this is one of your jokes. I think on that one, you're believing that this is so stupid, so people can think it is a joke, right?
Well, technically, this is true. Obviously, it's just metaphorical the way it's
Yeah.
explained. But what I'm trying to say is that we've been trained, we've been raised from a very young age that our economy is being supported by immigration. So we get trained in school that we're eventually going to leave the country. So that's the joke I'm trying to make with that.
Yes, and I'm saying that physically stamping a baby as if you're working in an
All right, yeah,
abattoir,
that's obviously a lie.
ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
obviously
that's
a lie,
obviously a
right?
lie. Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you say
Wow,
that,
that's such an old joke. I haven't done that joke in
I remember it. But you also say that you make jokes about Macedonia being in NATO, and you say NATO is no action, talk over.
only.
Talk only.
That's
you
what
then
NATO
say,
stands for.
what are we gonna do? You have one helicopter.
Technically, 2, and 1 defected in like 2009.
So is that true?
Well, that was true up until maybe, I want to say 5-6 years ago. That was true. Or up until the books were outdated.
Yeah.
You know, I think nowadays, well, whatever helicopters they have, correct me if I'm wrong, but they all went to NATO anyway.
So I think the actual numbers of helicopter in the Macedonian army probably doesn't really matter that much to the audience. But I want to use this example. Some of those jokes, it's actually not obvious for someone who don't know your country well to tell whether that's a joke or that's actually quite factual.
Well, it's a mixture of both. Let them guess, you know.
But is that your purpose? You actually enjoy the ambiguity and the uncertainty when you are switching between jokes and facts? Or is there any part that you may
no.
paint a picture that can be slightly misleading?
No, absolutely not. I think they all come from a truthful place. And then obviously it's comedy. So some of the bits, might be exaggerated. In this case, it was exaggerated when I say we had 2 helicopters because we had one, and because the one defected.
Why am I dwelling on this? So there are some very, very funny jokes that you did in this show in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
You talk about your mom being furious over NATO's intervention.
But why were you saying my mom was angry about what?
So your mom decided to boycott Sex and the City?
Oh no, so that's this is my auntie in Serbia. So this came on the news. I was only 6 years old, and NATO had just bombed Serbia. So my mom called my auntie, and my auntie was so upset with the Americans and NATO. She was like, I'm never watching Sex and the City again.
And then your next joke is that you watch the local equivalent.
She preferred the local version, yeah.
Which is a hand job in a room. I thought that's one of the best jokes. I loved it. It was so funny.
I just posted that one today, actually.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not...
But, because it has a swear word, I'm not sure the algorithm likes it.
Hand
as
job
much.
is a swear word?
Hand job is a swear word.
I'm always like wanky. So, what's a good question? Do I have to beep wanky when this episode comes out? Now, I think obviously hand job in a ruin is a joke.
Yeah, in the rubble.
They can't be a TV grower that just blatantly call themselves hand job in a ruin.
Yeah.
They would have changed it to something like
Well, I mean, technically, it's truthful.
my
because-
manual services, maybe. Instead of a hand job.
Well, the idea of the punchline is not always to be entirely true. It's
Yeah.
to capture the imagination
Yeah.
of the audience.
Did your auntie really boycott Sex and the City, though?
No, but she boycotted American programs.
Right.
It wasn't Sex and the City. It was she probably stopped watching Sex and the City for a month or two,
Yeah.
So maybe she stopped for a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily important to find out, because no one can know. I'm pretty sure this was 25 years ago. If you call my auntie today, she wouldn't be able to tell you exactly.
This is not the best example, but what I'm dwelling on, what I'm trying to say to you, I used to do a joke that, because I did the military service in the Taiwanese army, and it was true when I did the Taiwanese military service, our army was crap. And I said, if there's going to be a war between Taiwan and China today, we will surrender like France in the Second World War. And when I said it, it was kind of true, but we had changed of government, and our new government has spent a lot more updating our military equipment. And I thought, actually, the joke become kind of misleading. Even though it's a really quick joke, even though technically it's comedy, who cares? But then I thought, not a lot of people know about my country already. And I'm happy to self-deprecate. I'm happy to make fun of Taiwan. But I want to construct my country in a certain image. I don't always want to punch it down, because on daily basis, it's already being ignored and punched down. So I'm trying to use this as an example. When you think about making fun based on things you know in Macedonia, you say things about Macedonia, which I think a lot of them are based on truths. You say that Macedonia has very high unemployment rate. People, as a result, will be able to sit around having coffee for hours in the afternoon. So you joke about people being unemployed, etc., right? But has there been anything you decided to backtrack or just doing some joke that's frequently because you feel like, ooh, I'm taking the piss, I'm building an image of exaggerated, cartoonish version of Macedonia that may have gone a bit too wrong. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that does make sense. No, what I like to do is refresh it with, if I make a joke about my country and then they laugh and then I'm like, okay, well, now I want to make a joke about you guys. So take it in turns. But there's definitely a censor to a certain degree.
By whom? Censored by whom?
No, it's in self-censored.
Right.
I mean, certain things, like I would never think to make fun of some really horrendous tragedy or something like that, because there's no point in that. But I think generally, I don't mind it. It's comedy. Everything is on the table. And that goes well for the UK as well. One of the jokes I do about, Macedonia used to be like a large kingdom and then we messed it up.
Yeah.
Now we are barely a country. So very similar to the UK. Comedy is expansive, so if some people take offense, they can take offense. It's not about them.
But have you ever taken off jokes based on those principles?
No, absolutely no. But then again, I don't think I've ever written something that I've thought, oh wow, this is too controversial, because everything that I've written came from my personal experience. So the end question for me is, who can deny me that? Who can deny me my own personal experience?
know nothing about Macedonia. And so far, are you still the only Macedonian comedian in the UK? Has there been a second or third one?
I think for sure the only registered at the Fringe, which is hilarious. Come on. I mean, my flyer is the best Macedonian.
I just want to like, can guys,
the Fringe.
can you imagine that
only.
scenario? Like for a few years, I'm the only person on the comedy stage and saying this is what Taiwan is like, and there's not even another Taiwanese person to challenge me because I'm the only one performing for quite a while. I think there are about some newer comedians coming out from Taiwan right now, but I was able to say everything, and I don't need my government to sign off. That's weird. I wouldn't say it's a power, but it's a really weird thing when I think of it. I come from a country of 23 million people, and I alone can say whatever I like about my own country.
Gives you the freedom, unshackles
I know,
you.
unchecked, right?
Well, I think there is maybe a couple that perform in the UK. I'm not entirely sure, but I think definitely the only registered at the Fringe. So I can go crazy with all my Macedonian stories.
Okay. The
About
other
Ivar and Rakia. I'm not even that Macedonian anymore, in the sense that I've lived in the UK for 7-8 years now.
Yes.
So my mentality is, my country from 7-8 years ago. So when I get home, I'm like, oh, things have changed.
Same for me. I've lived my
Condoms
country.
are cheaper.
As someone coming from Macedonia, there are some neighboring country with very specific history and cross-national relationships. So for people who do not know, Macedonian is a language that's mutually intelligible with Bulgarian, meaning that they don't have to learn specifically. They can understand to a very good degree
Serbs probably as well.
This is...
And by default, then also
Sorry,
Croatia and Bosnia.
I'm gonna go back to my
Look,
Wikipedia.
Macedonians, we're the Irish of the Balkans. And our colonizer, the Ottoman Empire, they were there for 5 centuries. That's what we did. We picked cotton for the Ottomans.
Right.
Hopefully that will make it easier.
No. This doesn't come from me. This comes from... Okay, so I would just have to say the foundation principle is that nationalism, nation building, and people's understanding notion of the nation tend to come from the 19th century, I think. It's quite late.
Late
And
19th century.
every country has a right for self-determination, as Taiwan does. And every country has their own way to believe how their nation came about, right? So what I'm going to say right now may sound a bit offensive to some people, but I'm going to say it. It was written on Wikipedia. Up until the late 19th century, they tend to consider Macedonian and Bulgarian as a language continuum, in that the language has a little bit of interrelatability, or there's something overlapping, but then Macedonian, a separate identity, emerged in more modern times.
Well, I don't know exactly the years, but Macedonian language was codified right after World War II. So I think 1945 was codified. The thing is, when you go to a certain place, the people that have lived there for generations, they recognize their own dialects and accents, and you're of that place.
Yeah.
Obviously, during the Ottoman era, none of that was documented. So it was all oral tradition passing on. And then towards the late 19th century, obviously anyone like intellectuals, etc., they used to go to university either in Bulgaria or Greece. So if they go to university in Bulgaria, they're going to have to learn how to read and write in Bulgarian, etc.
So was it true that when Ottoman Empire ruled over the whole region in what is North Macedonia these days, there were Greek-speaking people, there were Macedonian-speaking people, and there were Serbian-speaking people living together as a clutter?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to like the old Kingdom of Macedonia, because it used to be much bigger, and so it encompasses certain parts which are now in the Republic of Serbia and then in Greece. So yeah, I would say so.
I know this bit's a bit dry, but there's a reason I mentioned this.
You're testing my
No.
my fifth
And I
grade
think as
history
a
lesson.
Taiwanese comedian, I'm in the best place to ask you this question. In a very broad way, I'm going to describe. In the history, Macedonia had been ruled as part of the Bulgarian kingdom before, has been ruled by Ottoman Empire, has also been ruled by Serbian, and it was a component of Yugoslavia. Right.
Exactly.
That's why some Bulgarians will see Macedonian as another group of Bulgarians, which is kind of denying your own self-identity and determination. But I think in the past, some Macedonian may think themselves either at the same time as Bulgarian or just Bulgarians. And it's very similar in Taiwan. Most people think we're Taiwanese. Some people think they are Taiwanese and Chinese at the same time. Some, a very small group, think they're just Chinese. So when you meet Bulgarian, let's say in an audience or other comics, is there tension you can create comedy from? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
because you mentioned once that Bulgaria would provide a Bulgarian passport to some citizens of Macedonia, provided they show they've assisted the war in the Second World War.
Yeah, that's for some people. Okay, well, first of all, I think people in Macedonia feel Macedonian.
Yes.
That's something that can be taken away.
Yeah, that's the foundation. As I say, like every nation has a right to determine their own national identity.
I think throughout history, Macedonians were just tired because they were like, because you had the Ottomans coming, then the Serbs came, then the Bulgarians. They were like, whatever, guys, you just tell us, we'll sign the paper and just leave us alone, please. We'll be whatever you want us to be. Yeah, and some people who applied for Bulgarian citizenship can find documents depending on when the Bulgarian administration during World War II, when they occupied the territories of Macedonia, if I think, let's say their grandparents went to school then and had Bulgarian ID, then they used to use those documents to apply for citizenship. I don't know if that's the same today.
But it creates a scenario, people can then say that I'm not Bulgarian, but I'll happily take a Bulgarian passport because that get me into the European Union, right?
For some people, yeah, it's very practical. I don't know who those people are, but
No, so my question
but look,
is...
there was one that you mentioned. It was at Camden Comedy Club. It was the immigrant show, and there was, and you know, I respect all nationality. I don't get involved in the whole politics. You know, if you tell me you're Bulgarian, I see you as a person first. I don't see you as a national.
Yeah, before
but
premises
this,
of this.
yeah.
So sometimes some Chinese people will look at me and say, do whatever cosplay you want, but you guys just like Chinese in another skin. I don't deny you being Chinese. And I'm asking Vlad whether a Bulgarian who turned to him and say, I don't understand all this Macedonian identity thing you guys are talking about. You guys are just other Bulgarians in my eyes.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Kind of patronizing attitude.
Oh, that happens.
Yeah,
that happens
that's
often.
Where after very long introduction, this is why I want to ask you about, because I'm in a position I can understand what you feel. It's like, no, we as a country, we want to decide what we want to be. Like, why can't you just whatever? Yeah.
And it's masked as jokey. Oh, but you're all Bulgarians or whatever. So it does happen. But at this instance, at the comedy show,
Yes.
there was like a group of Bulgarian people sat down and everything was fine. We were having fun. We were having the show. And towards the end of the show, one of the girls asked me, oh, Vlad, do you know where Bulgaria is? But what she meant by that was, of course you should know where Bulgaria is because Bulgaria is, you are.
It was a
part of
rhetorical question.
Yeah. And I answered with, of course, it was all Macedonia before.
That's good. It's a good comeback. How did she take it?
She took it well.
Okay.
She took it well. It was all for laughs. That's when I love Balkan people the most, is when we can all just laugh at each other.
There's a Venn diagram of a different grouping that Macedonia or North Macedonia finds itself in. They had this funny relationship with Bulgaria, but Bulgaria and Macedonia are also both Balkan countries. But Macedonia also was part of Yugoslavia. And not all Yugoslavian countries were Balkan countries. I mean, we'll let Slovenia decide what they want to be. But
Slovenia is Balkan. Come on, they just pretend not to be.
let them, right? Okay.
Do you know what? Because they think they're too cool for the Balkans.
Remember the debate we had with Radu, our lovely
No, I'm
friend
sorry.
from Romania?
They want to be Balkan when we play good basketball in the Balkan. They're like, oh yeah, Slovenia is Balkan. Luka Doncic and wow, in the NBA. But when it comes to like economy and stuff like that, they're like, peasants.
Please go back to episode 7 or 8 of season 1, Radu Isak. There's one specific section. Radu
Love
say
Slovenia.
that- no.
Love Ljubljana.
Radu is Romania.
No, I'm just giving a shout out
Okay, cool.
to Slovenia.
And Radu then say that he doesn't think Romania is a Balkan country, and I immediately dropped my jaw. I said, what? And I said, no, a 2008 Eurovision entry from Romania was literally a girl singing Balkan Girls. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he dropped that in the chess podcast that we do.
Yes, and you had it as a clip on your Instagram, don't
Yeah,
you?
there was so many comments. Romanian people going, we are in the Balkans.
Oh, so he was the minority. Most
Yeah.
Romanian would agree with you.
Yeah, I think.
I just like how
I don't
bad.
think it matters at the end.
But how bad is the branding of Balkans? Like you just wanted to be removed
Yeah,
from
to be
you.
out.
Like why are you really part of it?
Well, thing is, you ask Slovenians and they're like, no, Bosnia, that's Balkan. And then Bosnia is like, Serbs. Serbs are the Balkans.
I just think that, neighboring countries always hate each other. If there's a market and you go around performing in the ex-Yugoslavian state, because all this...
Oh, they'll love it there.
Yeah, because all this hatred, you can turn them into really good comedy material.
Oh, absolutely.
You said that you've done
I'm
some...
hungry. Do you have any crisps?
We're going for dinner in 30 minutes. All right,
Okay.
let's hang on to it. I've heard that you've done some jokes in Serbian to Serbians before. Not a lot, but
Yeah.
you did it before. How did it work?
I've done one show. I had a Serbian group, a Bulgarian group, and a Macedonian group in the same show.
And how did you feel about that? Did
I translated bits, I translated cultural references, geographic
But
references.
did you enjoy more doing jokes to your ex-Yugoslavian neighbors? Did you feel different? Like the kind of thing you can riff on and...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously Bulgaria wasn't part of Yugoslavia, but I think comedy is all about bringing that togetherness. And I think you can do that with stand-up comedy. Does that...
I don't know, like
That sentence
a lot
makes
of his answers just end in two sentences. Just like normally I'm still thinking about my next question by the third sentence, but Vlad ends up everything so abruptly. I don't know what to do.
Well, I mean, it's a very straightforward question. Do I enjoy? Yes, but I maybe am feeling a little bit nostalgic because when I go to Serbia, when I go to Croatia, Bosnia, I've never been. I'd like to go. I'll feel this sort of unity of like the past and us being Yugoslav, but you really don't feel that anymore.
When
You
did...
feel the closeness through language, through behavior, but I think generally that sort of unity now.
So when did Yugoslavia disintegrate? How old
Oh,
were
I
you?
wasn't even born.
You were not born.
91.
So you never lived through the Yugoslavian era.
No. I was
But
born
where-
2 years after.
But where did the sentiment come from if you never...
From my parents.
Right.
From being raised and from meeting all my other friends' parents and realizing, oh, they had all the same... It's almost like a shared collective understanding of what they were
And do
going
you
through.
think that the hostility and anonymity between the countries are too strong right now or just too distant between each other?
Whoa, can you...
Okay, I don't want to be offensive, but in your case, you never actually lived through, with your own memory, the Yugoslavian era. So what you had is what you understood from your parents. Sometimes our memory will be selective. So when you say that you were thinking this unity thing, could it be a filtered version of nostalgia you're feeling?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not me that I'm feeling, it's more my parents are feeling. There's definitely brainwash. I mean, it was communism.
But was it also because like Macedonia is a much smaller country now, but it used to be part of a much bigger...
I think
potentially more
Macedonia enjoyed a lot of growth during the Yugoslav Federation.
Right.
At least if you look at the economic stats. Because I did my dissertation in theater and politics in the 20th century of North Macedonia. If you look at the economical stats right after World War II until the dissolution of Yugoslavia, it enjoyed growth. So by some default, it enjoyed a bit more leeway, nice socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
People could afford to go on holiday. So people were happy.
And your parents were the generation that
They were part of that
experienced and lived through that.
generation, yeah.
Understood. On the podcast you did with the Moldovan girl, you guys talk about the film Borat by Saoirse Baron Cohen, which
Very nice.
I always
Very nice to meet you.
thought that film undo so much.
This is my wife. Also my sister.
I always thought that film undo so much effort by the Kazakhstan government's whatever tourism department they had, painting a very comical, absurd image of Kazakhstan. But at the same time, you say that by the sequel, they try to use it as like a reverse marketing tool. Do you feel the way you paint your country is a bit borderline Borat?
No, absolutely not. Absolute hard no.
No, okay.
Why would you? Is that how you imagine me?
I think
That's how you envision me.
some of your very early jokes. When you do...
I mean, I was very raw, you know? When I first came to the UK, I think... I don't think now. Yeah, but it's definitely... I've never...
You think understanding you, your country, and from the solo show I watch is very different from the short impression you get from watching some of very early, not even 20, the 10-minute comedy set. Especially the very, very early one. It was so packed with really sharp jokes, but based so much on specific stereotypes in a way. A lot of generalization of immigrant, which I do a lot myself as well. And that's why I always say I want to see your much longer form content, because when you do the jokes and then you talk about the war, like we have water, you don't. Do you remember that bit?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It changes everything. It gives it texture. It changes completely everything. But if someone who's kind of unlucky enough to be able to hear from you for a very short set. So for example, the one you have on BBC, the stand-up live comedy, I think it was a bit longer, but it was also strongly based on the stereotype.
Yeah, they cut a lot. But
It's that way.
yeah, I mean, they give you only 6 minutes of airtime. And even in those 6 minutes, the free version is 3 minutes. And then if you want the 6 minutes, you go watch it on iPlayer, which you can. It's still on BBC iPlayer. Stand Up for Life Comedy, Season 1, Episode 5.
Yes,
Margate.
it's also on BBC Three channel on YouTube. There's a short version of it.
The short version of it.
Yes.
So where was I? It was like what we spoke about in the beginning, a career decision where you have to start writing your set from somewhere. You can write about what you know.
Yes.
So I wrote about what I knew. Yeah, if I don't send that clip to the promoters today anymore because it doesn't give a...
Why not?
Well, because it's not
By
fresh enough. And also I've moved on from those jokes. I don't do those. I think in my last show, the Fringe show,
Yeah.
that's when I used everything that I've built up to. I used it in there.
So in the same podcast when you were talking about the film Borat, what I was trying to say is
He called me Borat.
your intention definitely isn't like Sacha Baron Cohen with Borat, because he probably doesn't care what people in Kazakhstan feel, and it's not his country. But you also talk about the hypocrisy of audience here, because they never... What was it? You were talking about Little Britain? Sorry, can I go back to my notes?
Sure. Little Britain. You're right, geezer. My name's Gary.
You say that as a society here became woke or more woke, BBC have removed Little Britain from its online content. But there's been no similar move to Borat. So making unjust or over-exaggerated insult on foreign country, fine, we don't really care. But making slightly inaccurate or demeaning depiction of a certain demographic or social classes in the UK is not okay. You were talking about this double standard and hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think because there's a lack of sense of... I think for anyone who might take offense with that, there's a lack of context because it's somewhere far.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of that ignorance, they don't even know that, oh, that is offensive to these people.
But is it offensive in your professional view right now? Because you also talk about there's no boundary. Everything is on the table.
I think it's a yes or no question. If you ask yourself the question today, if you had a producer to have the Borat idea today, I don't think it would get made.
I agree, yes.
I think, it's a little bit bizarre. I met a long time ago, I think my first or second year of comedy, I was doing this gig somewhere in the middle of nowhere. There's some small town. And I read on the bill there was another Macedonian comedian. And I was like so excited.
But he was a character act.
He was a character act. He was playing a poor Greek Macedonian immigrant from Greek Macedonia, and he comes on stage with like a little stick and a bag, like in Tom and Jerry, and holes in his shoes, and he pretends to be a Greek Macedonian immigrant from the 70s who comes to Britain. Personally, it's not that I got offended. I just thought it's way out of date. It's a little bit weird, and yes, it's insensitive. I think you would remove yourself from that situation.
You mentioned before that someone approached you and asked you after the show thinking you are a character act. And do you remember that right now? And I think they will have the impression because they have seen other acts like this act before, or they've seen other acts doing a character of a foreigner. This kind of insensitive attitude towards foreign culture does not seem as triggering or as an issue for the performance here. And I think they take the piss out of... For example, British people really enjoy doing their French and Italian accent. And there's a very famous act who just pretend to be a Frenchman, but he's actually English. So I still don't understand. I think, yeah, you can do it. I don't think you should be cancelled.
Well, I think on that line it's fine.
Yeah.
Because the French and the English, they give it to each other for a long time. And they have this whole rivalry thing going on. I think it's completely different when Borat is wrong on different levels because, first of all, half of the dialogue is not even how they talk in Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And they filmed in Romania. It was completely. It just shows that basically everything east of Germany for you is like, I don't care. But on the other hand, is also funny. I think it's funny if you accept the context and the age in which, you know what I mean? Like if you watch Rush Hour,
Yes.
the first film, it's got some terrible lines in there. But if you accept the context and the area in which it was made, you can laugh.
I'm gonna quote another thing you said. You said that when you're doing jokes.
I'm getting fried here.
No, you're not getting fried. We're having a discussion. You say that you can see when you're doing your self-deprecating jokes about North Macedonia, you can see 80% of audience laughing and learning more about your country, but sometimes you can tell 20% are laughing for the wrong reason. Do you remember saying that?
I don't, but I still agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
But not just for those jokes. I think for any jokes, even personal jokes. I think sometimes there is that
Let's say
sort of
now you're
wrong
a performer,
type of laugh.
you're a performer on stage and you sense that. How do you deal with it?
Well, I mean, there's not much you can do in the moment. If the gig is going well, you're not going to sabotage it just to be like, oh, you're laughing the wrong way. Start laughing the right way. You're just going to do your gig. But then I think that could potentially lead you into seeking out the truth a little bit more into your jokes.
And is it the accumulation of those experiences that lead you to the shift? You say you don't do quite as much as your early stuff and you're moving on from that.
No, that shift became entirely because I started learning about other comedy tools, disposable. So at first, that's the only thing I knew how to write jokes about. Now I know how to write jokes about other stuff. But definitely with time, you become a little bit... when I first started doing comedy, I was 23. I'm 31 now. So you mature as a person. And you put the weight behind the words and you see what you actually want to say. But I don't consider myself a prophet. Some, comedians, they're like, the truth and nothing, George Carlin. We're going to change the world and all this. I'm not that guy, For me, a joke is a joke. Sure, if it has meaning, but, I'm not out there to help you become a better dad.
When I learned that your first solo show was going to be a story about you playing chess and that with memories of you playing chess with your father, I wouldn't say shocked, but I just like, I wasn't expecting that. And I was really excited and I was really satisfied. I was really happy when I watched the show.
Oh, thank you.
And that's why I'm saying that from the very early stuff, maybe I've said this on another episode before, but as someone from a foreign country, from a different culture, when you start writing jokes, you go for the easy picking, the most obvious stuff. And what we notice that we are different from the audience here. We are aliens. We are local. The ominous title of our show.
The We Aliens.
Yeah. And as we mature or learn more tools at our disposal, we branch it out and you now do more observational jokes. And there's a much wider and fun variety of your jokes. And
yeah, I think it's always a challenge to be honest, because if you want to be like authentic, original artist, who said it? It was one of these old American comedians long time ago. Say the truth
and the funny will come out. Yes.
Yeah, it's so true. But also it's how you get to the truth. Because sometimes you have filters, We humans, we're a bit copy of a copy because we're a replica of each other in social situations. We like to follow norms and social norms and what's acceptable. So it's rarely that you're actually going to be completely 100% original.
Vlad,
all your opinions are influenced in some way or another by your parents, by your friends, by your peers, by your colleagues, etc. So what you want is to delve deeper into why you form those opinions. Go to therapy.
I don't know what to do with this episode. It was 50% national geography. That's probably my fault. But then 50% tech talk and therapy session. I think that's not entirely on me. But editing can be magical. So we'll find out. You'll be relieved to know we are up to have our food soon. But before that, how do people find you on social media for that?
You can... I keep changing my Instagram name. But for now, it's @VladHahaImpaler. My TikTok is at Vlad Ilich Comedy. I'm posting a lot of clips in the next couple of weeks or a few weeks. So,
But then when you're posting
when does
this
the episode
episode,
come?
when I come, I think gonna be late November or early December. I think.
okay, never mind. Watch my Christmas special. Find it on my Instagram page. Thank you.
All right, so that's been our guest today. Freddy's love, baby, don't hurt me. Maybe I shouldn't be singing it because I might just like add a song into the final music.
That would be copyrights as well.
But if it's really short.
Oh, you can.
Okay, we're gonna go have our dinner right now. If you like the episode, please give us a rating and follow us on social media. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye.